Hello everybody, welcome back to another Reasonable Price Prediction, the series where we try to figure out where your favorite altcoins could be headed. Now today we are looking at Fetch.AI, which is an AI cryptocurrency that has not only been going crazy on its US dollar chart, but also its Bitcoin chart as well, both of which we'll be taking a look at in this video. And the kind of main reason I'm making this video is, well, there's two. First of all, I wanted to make a video on AI cryptocurrencies and sort of give my take on the general trend that's happening within crypto and AI at the moment. But I also made this video because I've had people in my life come to me and ask me about cryptocurrencies, which is usually a bearish sign in my opinion. But I've had them come to me and ask specifically about AI cryptocurrencies like Fetch and others. And they come to me and they say, oh, well, Fetch has done these amazing moves over the last year and I think I should get in. Should I? And I would never tell anyone what to do with their money, but I tell them that I would not at this stage. And that's not because Fetch couldn't make great moves on its US dollar charts. I think it could. But what I realistically think is that it's already done the majority of those great moves. Like Fetch has done a 40x basically since 2023. If we take it from its low to its current price, we're a 30x up. And what I kind of say to them is, you know, if I get the chance to pull out some charts on them, is I kind of say, Fetch has already made these huge moves of 30%, and last cycle, Fetch made a total move of 74x. Sorry, I meant to say 30x here. Fetch last cycle made a total move from low to high of 74x. If Fetch is going to do that again, and that's a big if because not a lot of altcoins are able to repeat the gains that they get for a second cycle. It just usually doesn't happen. Altcoins don't have the lasting power, and also things like market cap grows, liquidity grows, much harder to move an altcoin. So again, we talk about diminishing returns, diminishing volatility. That's normal across the whole stock market, crypto not an exception, and we've seen it with many cryptocurrencies. So if you're going to expect that it's going to play out in similar moves as last cycle, Fetch is only basically a 2x away from what it did last cycle. It's moved up about 36% now. If you 2x that, you're looking at about a 60x in total. So maybe a 2.3x from here will put you back to the all-time highs that it experienced and the crazy rally that it experienced its first cycle. So if you want to get into Fetch now, I would somewhat argue you're late. Now these could be famous last words. Fetch might go on to blow up and move into like, you know, the $10 range, and it might do a 10x from here, and that would be crazy. But realistically, Fetch is unlikely to make these huge gains, and that does come back to market cap. Currently it's ranked 61. It's got a market cap of like $1.5 billion, very respectable. But if Fetch is to 10x from here, it would basically give it Avalanche's market cap. And that is like, that's possible. You know, like it's not unreasonable, well, it could be unreasonable, but it's definitely not impossible to assume this could happen. Fetch with Avalanche's market cap, number 15 crypto, it's definitely possible. But you also have to ask yourself, is it worth that risk? Are there other cryptocurrencies out there now that could potentially rally higher because they haven't been getting the attention currently that things like Fetch and other AI coins and deep-in coins and gaming coins have? Because, you know, if you think that Fetch is going to perform like the same cycle, you've got like a 2.3x. If you buy now, is where like you're pushing your limits after that, basically. You're hoping for an exceptional bull run. And a lot of that comes from hype and speculation, two things that you have no control over and no real way of gauging or predicting. Or you can look at something like our example, Avalanche, that basically is at $45 or whatever, which is basically, it's got a 4x move until it gets to its all-time high, and most likely with the whole gaming thing and stuff, Avalanche could go higher than its all-time high. You know, maybe it could go 6x. And at this point, because you are quite late realistically, like your best time to be buying, especially things like Bitcoin, was the end of 2022, early 2023. And that's not saying you can't make money now, but to expect crazy returns like, you know, coming to Fetch and hoping for a 40x if you buy now, I think is unreasonable. And if we kind of look into what Fetch did last cycle, we can see it made a move of 75% up. And from this kind of resistance that we set early on enough, once it broke above there, it moved up 350%. Now, if we kind of take a look at what's happening so far, we can see that we take our resistance as our all-time high, but we also came back to and couldn't break above, realistically, like we couldn't here. It tried, couldn't break above, got rejected. Here, couldn't break above, got rejected. And now we've finally broken above it a long time afterwards. And again, if we're taking the 75x, 74x type of a move, which is 73x, and if I just zoom out a bit so you can see more clearly the chart, and we take a 323% move, I could bring this up a tiny bit, but realistically it's kind of telling the same story. They both paint the same picture of, from the previous resistance, the key resistance that stopped us from going to new all-time highs. When we finally broke above that, we moved 350% up from that move. We are now above that move, so if you want to again take where we are and move it up to this 350% range, you're looking at basically, a 130% move, which is equivalent to roughly just over a 2x, a 2.3x in your money. And if we check how long these moves have gone on for, again, taking it from its low, we'll say, to this peak, 78 weeks. If we take a look at this low, from where we currently are now, was 66. So basically we have a few more weeks left before we get to a similar level. If we go to 78, it basically tops out. If it's going to play out like it does before, it basically tops out just after the halving, which isn't kind of too unrealistic, because oftentimes when we've done the BTC videos and the dominance videos, we talk about how almost every cycle there is some sort of correction, either before or after or both around the halving. And that correction can range from 20%, having multiple 20% moves to the downside before and after, or it can range from like a 50% drop like we got with the COVID scare. But every halving that's sort of happened on BTC, and every halving that's basically happened on every altcoin. So to assume that it won't happen this time, again, to me would be a little hopeful, if you will. And we could very well see something like this play out again, where we have our sort of strong moves, we put in our tops and our pullbacks, we put in a top and have a pullback, and then we have strong moves up. Excuse me for my nose, I'm totally blocked up today. And then we have a strong move up, a bit of a pullback here, a bit of a pullback here, and then one final leg up to put in basically our all-time high. And now last cycle we didn't think we'd get this revisit. We could get this revisit depending on how time plays out. Again, we have like 10 more weeks, that's like 2.5 months. If it's going to play out in the same way that it did last time, getting to its all-time high, now it could very well break above this, and it could rally for a year. I have no real way of knowing. It would be exceptional if it did, but again, nothing is impossible. But I also want to point out how we've slowly ramped up, and last cycle we had a similar thing where we slowly ramped up more and more until we had a sudden pullback, and we came back down, funnily enough, to this sort of white level here. And this is where we found a lot of support. You see, we kept bouncing off this, and eventually we put in a second move to the top. We could see a similar move like this, we put in a high, and then have an instant pullback, maybe around the halving time, to this level. I ultimately, just like everyone else, do not know, but I would be cautious, and I wouldn't advise anybody to do anything with their money. But if it was me, I would not move into these AI coins at the moment. Maybe after a pullback like this, you might want to, because you can still make a 360% move. That's quite nice, especially if we're sort of topping out around that time in the market, which is something that we realistically have to talk about now, because you could argue that we've been in a bull run for a long time. Bitcoin looks like it was in a bull run last year, 2023 pre-halving year. So maybe we have an alt season this year and we sort of mess up the 4-year cycle a bit. It'll be interesting. I definitely think this year will be interesting, but whatever happens, I feel comfortable with my positions. Anyway, taking a look at Bitcoin and Fetch, the same chart. Again, kind of a very similar story in terms of what we see with resistances and where we've currently made our moves, and also with the degree of the movement. We can see that basically from November time, which was the same as the US dollar chart, was when we started making these moves up. So Fetch has been outperforming BTC basically since 2023 as well, and BTC was already doing extremely well. Now, I always say, for me, during these sort of years, I would hold most of my money in Bitcoin, and I always say there will be an exception to the rule that outperforms Bitcoin. It looks like Fetch outperformed Bitcoin this cycle, for most of it anyway, basically since 2022 onwards. But the key difference here with the Bitcoin pair against the US dollar chart pair is that we are still very far away from our sort of all-time high on the Bitcoin pair. And this is also another reason why I think Fetch cannot do amazingly on its US dollar charts. Because if let me turn off the logarithmic so you get a more realistic view of what this is. Fetch is currently, a 3x away on its Bitcoin pair. So if Bitcoin is going to go up to 100k, we'll just say Bitcoin will 2x, okay, over the next cycle. That means Fetch also has to 6x to outperform it to a level that will bring it to its all-time high. It has to outperform Bitcoin to a magnitude of 3. And we've already taken a look at Fetch on its US dollar pair, and the chances of that historically are low. We see that Fetch basically has a sort of 200% move in its own tank left. Potentially, nothing's written in stone. But we've basically seen that Fetch is going to struggle to do much more amazing moves on its US dollar pair. Now, if you got into Fetch early, obviously there's still huge amounts of gains that you can make. But if you're looking at buying now, this is who I'm mainly talking to. If you're looking at buying now, your upside is potentially very, very capped. Very capped. And now there's a lot of smart money in cryptocurrency. So again, it kind of comes down to your beliefs and what you think will happen in the crypto space. I'm not here to tell you what's going to happen. I can't. I don't have a crystal ball, and I will never tell you what to do with your money. All I will do is put a chart in front of you and tell you what I think could happen. And emphasis on could. I've been wrong many times. No shame in saying that either, in my opinion. Anyone who says they're right 100% of the time is probably scamming you. But yeah, that's my more bearish, maybe a bit of a downer view on Fetch, especially if you haven't got into it already. If you got into it before, somewhere in late 2023 even, you still have a lot of potential upside to move. And for reference, I should have said before, this cap is somewhere around $4, below $4 realistically. And we're currently trading at $1.80. So if you got into Fetch at 30 cents, 50 cents, 60 cents, even at the start of this pump, sort of 70 cents, you can still make potentially a 5x, 6x, and who knows, maybe even more. But for me, I would not be pricing in anything higher than that. And if it does go higher, it's a nice surprise. You know what I mean? You might want to start consider dollar cost averaging out of the market now, or not now, but maybe above $2.70 or maybe above $3, sort of these ranges where we're coming close to Fetch's historic all-time highs. But maybe you might want to hold on to a bit just in case it does have a sudden explosion and now you're up 10x instead of 5x, Anyway, I've rambled long enough. Hopefully you found this video useful. If you did, leave a like. If you didn't, leave a dislike and comment down below. Tell me why not. And again, also let me know where you think Fetch could be headed. Maybe my price prediction is way off and you have a good reason for that. Let me know down in the comments. Share it around. I love chatting to you guys about where I think price could go, because I all think, to be honest with you, you're all pretty knowledgeable, or the few of you that I've actually spoken to in the comments. So please keep commenting. I love the chats. Thanks very much, guys. Take care and peace.